Guys, Jane here, and today I want to talk about 5 things that I've really seen tripping up new authors. I've been mentoring some newer authors, and I've also been active on some forums, and of course in our physical writers group that I'm a part of. And there seems to be 5 big things that get in the way of new writers succeeding. And by succeeding, I mean finishing their first book. So here's the 5 things that I think cause the most problems and alternatives or ways to think about it or ways around it. So I'm going to solve those for you so that they don't affect you. Number 1, too many people stop because they think they're no good. And here's the thing. Writing well takes practice. I'm going to say it again. Writing well takes practice. You wouldn't expect to sit down at the piano for the first time and to play Beethoven. I mean, you're going to be lucky if you can get chopsticks out. And I don't know why new writers think that they should be playing Beethoven the very first time they try to write a novel. It's very hard because new writers that I met a lot of times, they want approval. They want you to tell them that their work is great. And the thing is, it's not. But that's okay. You're writing your first novel, your first draft. It'll be great down the line when you have a rewrite and a developmental editor and all the things that go into the writing process. But too many people start writing and realize that their first book is kind of crappy and they don't finish it. And they just think, I must not be a real writer. Why am I bothering? No, you are a real writer. You just need practice. No concert pianist has ever just sat down at a piano and played Beethoven the first go. Almost everybody starts with chopsticks. And if you're a prodigy, maybe Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. So don't expect that as a writer to sit down and play Beethoven or write, the equivalent of the literary greats, your first novel. You're going to be lucky if you write something equivalent to 50 Shades of Grey as far as that good. And you all probably, if you've been following my channel, know that I'm not a big fan of the writing of 50 Shades of Grey. I read in a book, I believe the book was called Outliers. I hate quoting things that I didn't look up and I should have, but I didn't. Pretty sure, Outliers. The guy that wrote it said it takes 10,000 hours to master a skill. If you have been writing for less than 10,000 hours, you suck, and that's okay. Write your first novel. It's going to suck, and that is fine. Write it anyway. Number 2, they ask for critique too early. Now, this is kind of a double-edged sword thing, because if you can handle the critique, it's not a bad thing to go to somebody more experienced early on and say, here's how I write. What are things that you see that I'm not doing properly? And that just limits what you have to fix later on, and it also lets them identify their strengths and weaknesses. For me, I am really, really good at dialogue. I'm good at emotion. I'm kind of sucky at description. And I tend to not describe anything. So I have to go back and add description. But since I know that's one of my weaknesses, I can really focus when I'm writing on, okay, we're at a new scene, a new place, I should probably describe this. This is a new person, what do they look like? If you are a new writer and you are taking critiques and criticism from somebody who is more experienced and actually knows anything about what they're doing, so not your best friend who's also writing their first novel, but an actual experienced writer from, for instance, your writers group who has, 10 or 15 novels under their belt in your genre, because that's important too. Listen to what they have to say and ask for their help and ask for their criticism if you can handle it and if it's not going to slow you down. If you know or suspect that they're going to tell you things that'll make you throw up your hands and say, I'm just not good enough, I don't want to do this anymore, don't ask for criticism until you're done with your first novel and your developmental edit will just be a little bit more in depth. Getting the first novel written is the most important thing you need to do. And don't let any of the other stuff distract you or slow you down or get in the way. But don't ask for criticism if you think there is any chance it's going to crush your soul. Only ask for criticism if you think you can use it productively. I do think for some people it's helpful because they maybe learn that they don't know much about point of view, or that they tend to infodump, or that they don't know the difference between showing and telling. And in those cases, having somebody to mentor you and help you can be very helpful. But if it's going to crush your soul, don't do it. Write your first draft and then developmental edit the crap out of it later. Number three. Some writers, a lot of new writers, and I see this in writing forums all the time, they worry about the wrong things. Write your novel. Don't worry about things like, well, how many pages should a chapter be? Should I add this or not add this to my story? Can I write a guy if I'm a girl? Then they think about things like pen names and publishers and agents and all this stuff that needs to come later. Write your story. Once you have a novel, while it's in the developmental edit stage with the developmental editor, then you can worry about this other stuff. And the developmental editor will probably help you with things like, okay, you tried to write a guy and you're a girl, and this didn't sound quite right, or this wasn't appropriate for your genre, or maybe they'll advise you to send to a sensitivity reader because you're writing an LGBTQ character and you are not LGBTQ, and some things felt off. A lot of this stuff you don't know until you write your first book. And things like chapter length, that is something that there's a feel to it. So a lot of that is not stuff you need answered until you are done and your developmental editor can answer it. Write your story. That's kind of the theme of this whole video. Write your novel and worry about everything else later, because getting the first draft of your novel written is the most important thing. And then getting the second draft where you fix all the mistakes that you see. And then at that point, sending it to a developmental editor, somebody who knows how to write and tell a story, and listening to the feedback and criticism they give you. That's how you become a writer. That is the process. And you can't stop because you're no good or you're worried about the wrong things, and so you've spent 5 years researching stuff instead of writing your story. Number 4, and this one is going to hurt some people's feelings, and I'm so sorry. And this is not universally true, but it's true probably 9 times out of 10. So 90% of the time. They are pantsing when they should be plotting. There are a few writers in this world who are truly pantsers and who can write a complete novel by the seat of their pants, having no idea what they're doing or going to do until the very end. And with each scene unfolds, it's just like, oh, this is nice, this is cool, I didn't know this was happening. 90% of writers can't do that even though they think they can. So if you write novels and you've never finished one, and you get maybe to the first third finished and then jump to the next project, you are probably having this problem that you're trying to pants it and you're not a natural pantser, even though that feels natural to you. Now, if you're a pantser and you can finish your novel, just ignore everything I said. If you can get through your first novel completely pantsing it, this doesn't apply to you. But if you're having trouble and you've never finished a novel and you're trying to pants it, try plotting instead. And it doesn't have to be a complete scene by scene plot. It doesn't have to be an outline, a strict outline. I think people worry about that too much. Have your beginning, your middle, and end. Know the majority of the important scenes that happen. Know basically what's going on. And once you have those roadblocks, you can write your story a lot easier than if you have no clue where you're going. The final thing And this is another one that is a little controversial. I've mentioned it in my spilling the tea thoughts video, and there's a lot of writers out there that don't agree with me, but this is my opinion. Another thing that stops new writers is they only write or want to write when the muse hits. For most people, again, this is not for everybody, but for most people, and I would say in this one it's like 99% of writers, you're never going to get your first book written if you only write when you feel like it and when the muse hits. You want to become a writer? Sit down and write. And you really should sit down and write regularly. I think 5 days a week, even if it's only for 30 minutes or for a scene, because you can really time yourself either by a timer or by a count. Like if I'm struggling to write, I'll say, I'm just going to sit down and write the next scene. And you can do that. You can do that every day, 5 days a week. Say, I'm just going to write one scene. And once that scene's written, call it a day. And you'll still get your story. It may take a while, but you'll get there. I would say, in my personal opinion, if you really want to get your book done, you should not be writing less than once a week. If you really, really want to get your book done, ideal for me is 4 to 5 days a week. You gotta stay in there, you gotta stay in the focus, because here's the thing. The more you write, number one, you get the practice in. And also the more your brain becomes used to the fact you're doing it. It's like exercise. It's, if you exercise once every month, it's probably going to do a lot less for you than if you exercise a couple times a week. Writing is a skill, and the more you practice, the better you're going to be. And if you just practice when you feel like it, when you're feeling creative, your book's probably never going to get done. So get in there, write, have some kind of writing routine, and get your first novel finished. Again, this is for people who've never finished a novel, because that is the hardest first step. Once you've written your first novel, everything kind of gets a little bit easier because you've done it, you know kind of what works and what doesn't for you. But I've had so many people that I've been trying to help and who end up stuck on one of these 5 points. Don't get stuck, get finished. All right, guys, this has been Jane. I hope that has helped you if you are struggling to write your first novel. I want you all to succeed because I want to read your books in the future. My social media is down here, along with the like and subscribe button. Also the comment if you have anything to add, any other suggestions or things that have kind of thrown you off as a writer, anything that I might be able to help you with if you need it addressed, go ahead and comment below. Until next time, guys. Thanks. Bye.